Hi guys, welcome back. Today we're going to look at some of the console games in the Legend of Zelda series. I do have all the console games, the main ones. There are different variations that I don't have, but as far as the mainline games, I do have them all. I have completed them all several times, most of them. So I want to go over them today and give you my thoughts and opinions on them. Okay, let's go. Okay guys, starting off we have the original Legend of Zelda for the Nintendo Entertainment System. I still remember when this game came out. I was maybe 11 or 12. My friend had gotten it and we couldn't stop playing it. It was one of those games back then where you would go to school and kids at school would be talking about the item that they found or the secrets that they ran into. It was definitely a revolutionary game for back then. You never had something like that up until that point, especially the opportunity to save your game on the cartridge. Truly revolutionary. Up next we have Legend of Zelda Part 2, The Adventure of Link. Again, you can see this was released in a gold cartridge as well as the less familiar gray cartridge. Generally the gray cartridges are a little harder to find. It was quite a departure from the original Legend of Zelda because this was a side-scrolling adventure with more RPG elements added in. It's one of those games that is really either loved or hated by Zelda fans. I like the game. It is difficult, but it still feels like a Zelda game, just completely different from anything in the series though. Up next we have Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. As you can see, the left is the North American Super Nintendo version, the right is the Japanese Super Famicom version. Both of the exact same game, obviously just in different languages. This is, to a lot of people, their favorite Legend of Zelda game. It's still in the 2D aspect, but more akin to what the original Legend of Zelda was. But with better graphics, better sound, the adventure was huge, the map was gigantic, it had a dark world. This is in my top 5 Legend of Zelda games of all time for sure. Moving on to the Nintendo 64, now we have what many consider not just the greatest Zelda game of all time, but the greatest video game of all time, and that's Ocarina of Time. This is my personal favorite game in the Zelda series. I remember when this came out, I just think it was revolutionary for the time, especially making the switch from 2D to 3D. To me, it's a perfect game. I know people think that it has faults, but you have to remember at the time when it came out, it was so revolutionary and groundbreaking that there was nothing like it. And for what it did for the series, it was just amazing. And here you can see the different variations of the cartridges I have. You have the gray cartridge on the left, the gold again in the middle is the collector's edition, and on the far right is the Nintendo 64, but the Japanese version. Moving on with the Nintendo 64, we have Majora's Mask. To a lot of people, this is their favorite Zelda game. For me personally, it's not. I like the game, don't get me wrong, but compared to Ocarina of Time, I felt that it was really lacking in certain areas. I found it repetitive, but the game itself, I mean, obviously the gameplay is fantastic. I do think the bosses in this game are really well done, but just for me, it wasn't a personal favorite of mine. A lot of people do love it though. As you can see on the left-hand side, again, is the gold holographic cartridge, and on the right is the Japanese Nintendo 64 cartridge. Okay guys, moving on to the GameCube. Here are a couple discs that are obtained not through stores, but through different means. I believe one was through Nintendo Power. And these are collector's discs. So on the left we have The Legend of Zelda. This has Ocarina of Time and the Master Quest included on it. And on the right hand side is the collector's edition promotional disc. This one has the original Legend of Zelda, Legend of Zelda 2, and it also has Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask on it. So these were only available through certain ways. You couldn't go into a store and buy them. So now these are fairly pricey to find just because of their limited availability. So the first new entry on the GameCube in the Legend of Zelda series was the Wind Waker. You can tell here I've got two different versions, the original, and then on the one on the right is the Wind Waker Metroid Prime combo that was only available in consoles. One of my favorite games, probably my second all-time favorite Zelda game. I know it was very controversial when it was first shown because of the cel-shaded look, but the game runs so smoothly. It's such a great game, so much fun to play. I can't really say anything bad. I know some people don't like the sailing portions, they find them too long, but I definitely think in the Wind Waker HD it alleviated a lot of that. Here we have The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, released on the GameCube and on the Wii at the same time. I remember getting the Wii version on launch day and playing it. Really good game, has probably some of the best dungeons in the series. Very good, solid story. The only downfall with a lot of people in this game are some of the wolf sections. They seem to carry on a little long. I kind of feel the same way. And the story does take a while to get going at the beginning. But overall, a very, very solid game. Next we have The Legend of Zelda, The Four Swords Adventures. This was a GameCube game as well. Came out and utilized the Game Boy Advance, being able to control up to 4 players at once, so you could play in tandem. I really loved this game for what it is. You can play it by yourself. It is fun if you have 3 other players with you. It was a little bit hard to find people with 3 Game Boy Advances and copies of the games. But if you have the opportunity to play it with other people, it is a lot of fun. I could see them redoing this. This would be a good way to play online co-op. Finishing with the last game on the Wii system, this is Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. On the left is the full version, which included the game and a Symphony of the Goddess CD, soundtrack, orchestral music. On the right is the Skyward Sword limited edition steelbook that was available in Canada. Both are the exact same game. Again, for some people this is a very divisive game. A lot of people love this, like myself. I love the story in it. I think it's probably the best Zelda story in all of the games. The gameplay is solid. It is a little repetitive with some of the boss fights, but overall I really like this game and hope that they remake it in HD. Some people do not like it, mostly because of the motion controls. They had problems with the swords and other things that you had to utilize the motion controls. You couldn't turn them off. I never had any problems myself, and that's why I still hold it pretty highly. Moving on to the Wii U, we have 2 remakes that were done for The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess and Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker. Both were redone with new assets, upgraded visuals. Other things were added that kind of affected gameplay, such as in the Wind Waker, there was the ability to get the swift sail, which made sailing across the waters much quicker. Definitely fixed certain aspects of the game that maybe were lacking before. These are really good versions to play, probably the definitive versions if you want to play these games. Continuing on, this is a spin-off game from the Zelda series, and this is Hyrule Warriors. Continuing the Dynasty Warriors series, but incorporating Link and Zelda and many other characters in that world. Lots of fighting, lots of enemies, very frantic, fast-paced action, but it is good. It's not the most deep like an adventure game would be in the typical Zelda sense, but it is a lot of fun, especially if you have another player to play with. And finally, we're finishing off with the current Zelda game. This is Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. On the left for the Wii U was the last Zelda game released for that system, and for the Nintendo Switch on the right side. And that was the launch game for the Nintendo Switch, which helped it sell, immensely at the beginning. One of the best Zelda games out there, obviously. Some people hold it as the best game ever. Some people hold it as the best Zelda game ever. For me, it's not quite there. I do really like it. The gameplay itself is fantastic. The physics is amazing. One of the downfalls for me kind of was the lack of dungeons and kind of Zelda-esque things that I'm accustomed to. But I do love the game overall. I put in over 100 hours easily. Definitely a fantastic game that everybody should play. Okay guys, so that's my look at the Legend of Zelda games that I have in my collection. Eventually I would like to have the Japanese versions of all the games as well, but I definitely have a lot. I replay them all the time to this day. Definitely my favorite series of all time, and if you've never played them, you should really check them out. There really isn't a bad game in the entire series, except maybe the CDI games, but anything produced by Nintendo is simply stellar. So that's it guys. If you like this video, please hit the like button, leave any comments below, and I hope to see you again. Take care.